Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards for the dollar. I'm David, and today we're going to learn how the stack works. Now, Magic is quite a complicated game. We're not going to be looking at all the rules for the stack, just enough so we can play our first couple of games. Okay, so what do we talk about when we're talking about the stack in Magic? Well, technically the stack is a zone in the game where spells and abilities temporarily wait before they're allowed to resolve. Now, resolve is basically a fancy word for saying it becomes what it's supposed to become. In layman's terms, the stack is an imaginary place where your spells and abilities go and wait for your opponents to have a chance to respond to them before they become real. It's as if the spell hangs in the air forming before it becomes a cool dragon or a fireball of destruction. So, this gives our opponent the chance to respond to the spell or ability with spells or abilities of their own. Remember that every spell and ability uses a stack. More concretely, let's say we pay 2 green mana to cast a Runeclaw Bear, and we don't actually put it into play immediately. What we do is we put it on the stack first, which unfortunately has no physical place on the table. So what most people just do is we just put it on the table and we ask if the spell resolves. So, does our Runeclaw Bear turn into a creature on my side of the battlefield? Our opponent now has a chance to respond with a spell or ability of their own. It's important to note that while the stack has something on it, players can only respond with instant spells or abilities. So no playing lands, no casting sorceries, no casting creatures, enchantments, artifacts, or planeswalkers. None of that. Okay, let's go back to the stack. The first spell on the stack is our Runeclaw Bear, so our opponent can only respond with an instant spell or an ability. Well, they don't really like the look of that creature, so they decide to respond by tapping 3 blue mana and playing Cancel, targeting our Runeclaw Bear spell, which is still on the stack. A spell which is countered does not resolve and goes straight to the graveyard. As Cancel is also a spell, it goes to the stack to wait before it can resolve. But where do we put it? Next to each other? No. Now we come to the clue of why it is called the stack. You see, as new spells get added to the stack, we stack them on top of each other. So in this case, the bear card goes on the table and the cancel card gets placed on top of the bear card. This stacking can continue as long as players keep playing spells or abilities one after another. For the sake of simplicity, let's say our opponent asks if the cancel spell resolves and we say yes. At this point, all the spells and abilities on the stack are going to happen in top to bottom order or last in, first out. So the last spell cast will resolve first all the way down to the very first spell. The easiest way to remember it is simply to pick up the cards from the top to the bottom and resolve them in that order. In our example, we have the cancel spell on top of the Runeclaw Bear spell. So first, cancel gets resolved, and the Runeclaw Bear spell gets cancelled and put into our graveyard. The stack is now empty and nothing else happens. Our sweet Runeclaw Bear never even got the chance to manifest. Now let's have a look at another example. In this case, we already have a sweet Runeclaw Bear on the battlefield, and it's our opponent's turn. During their main phase, they decide to play Shock, targeting our bear. The Shock spell goes on the stack, and our opponent asks if it resolves. We know that if we don't play an instant spell or an ability now, our bear will be fried to a crisp, so we ask our opponent to hang on while we decide what we do. We decide to pay 1 green mana and play Giant Growth, so now that goes on the stack, on top of the Shock spell. We now ask our opponent if it resolves, and they say yes. Okay, so now we're going to resolve all the spells from top to bottom, so in reverse order. First, Giant Growth gets resolved, and our Runeclaw Bear gets +3/+3 till the end of turn, making it a giant 5/5 bear. Then Shock resolves, dealing a measly 2 damage to our bear, which can easily shrug it off with its 5 toughness. At the end of the turn, the 2 damage gets removed from the bear and it reverts back to being a 2/2, safe and ready to exact revenge upon those who would try to cook it. In our final example, we're going to see how abilities work with the stack. Now, spoiler alert, it's exactly the same as with spells. So, let's say that we have a Gideon's Lawkeeper and our opponent has an Intrepid hero on the battlefield. It's our turn, so we're going to play Serra Angel, starting a new stack. Our opponent does not respond by adding anything new to the stack, so it resolves and enters the battlefield under our control. After a stack gets resolved, any new spell or ability will start a new stack. Now our opponent decides to tap their Intrepid Hero to destroy our Serra Angel. Now what's important to remember is that while spells and abilities do use the stack, paying for such spells and abilities does not use the stack. So basically mana that we paid to cast our Serra Angel did not use the stack, nor does tapping the Intrepid Hero to pay for its ability to destroy the angel. In other words, they can tap their Intrepid Hero and there's nothing we can do to stop the ability from going on the stack. Let's say we do pay a white mana and tap our Gideon's Lawkeeper to tap the Intrepid Hero and then follow up with an additional shock targeting the Intrepid Hero. Surely that should be enough to make sure that our angel survives. Okay, so this is what happens. First on the stack is the Destroy Angel ability. Next comes the Tap the Intrepid Hero ability. And finally, the Shock instant spell. They resolve in reverse order, and as such, first, Shock deals 2 damage to the Intrepid Hero. He ain't pretty no more and gets put into the graveyard. Next comes the ability from our Gideon's Lawkeeper, and it's going to try and tap Intrepid Hero. However, all that is left is a pile of ash, can't target, so that does not resolve. Finally, the Destroy Angel ability gets resolved, and our Majestic Serra's Angel gets destroyed and put into our graveyard. Now you may be wondering, didn't we make sure Intrepid Hero was dead long before its ability could resolve? Why did the angel still die? Well, it's because abilities are fire and forget, which means once they hit the stack, they will resolve regardless of the fate of the permanent which brought it to be. Well, this was the basic summary of the stack. As we saw, the stack is a zone in the game where spells and abilities have to wait before they can resolve, so while they're in this zone, they can be countered. All spells and abilities use the stack, but only instants and abilities can be used to respond at something already on the stack before it resolves. Paying for costs such as tapping lands or paying for abilities in another way does not use the stack. Spells and abilities on the stack start resolving only when no one else wishes to respond anymore, and then they're going to resolve in reverse order. So last in, first out. Now we know the stack is really complicated, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us either via Facebook or Twitter at Budget MTG Decks. You can also leave us comments over here. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the most powerful decks and advice everyone can afford. Oh, and also if you do subscribe, don't forget to hit the little bell button, because then you'll actually be notified when the next video comes out. Thanks for watching. I'm David. This was Budget MTG Decks.